Hello and welcome one, welcome all. So happy to have you here. All right, if you're a returning viewer, listener, subscriber, welcome back, welcome back. If you're new to this space, welcome, welcome. Voices in Education is a safe space where we share and learn from each other. We do that in a respectful way, so we do not bash anyone, belittle anyone, disrespect anyone, and we understand that we share different views, perspectives. That is totally okay. We do so in a respectful way to ensure that we're maintaining our safe community. And we understand too that there is so much richness in diversity. So, welcome again. In a little bit, my co host, will be here with us. Zaim, welcome. I can see you there in the chat. So we're going to just kind of look at Garvey Maceo's journey to the Olivier Shield and just to talk about it. Usually they say the luck of the Irish. We have this one titled The Luck of the Cubans. But is it really luck or is it just, that they did what they needed to do in the context of, their gifts, their talents, their skills. And we're going to make this conversation a very interactive one. So we're going to ask you to participate in the live chat, to join us on Zoom, or to give us a WhatsApp call. We'd love to hear from you in that context. All right. So again, welcome one, welcome all. So happy to have you guys here with us. And I believe, Ovi, you're here now. Welcome. How are you doing?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Are you ready for this one?
Well, I have to be. It's all scheduled and out there, but yes, yes, I'm really excited about the discussion that we'll have here as it regarding the Garvey Maceo team here. So yeah, I'm really excited. How are you as it relates to this one?
I'm good. I just want to ask you first, though, do you believe it's the luck of the Irish or, sorry, the luck of the Cubans, or it's just, natural skills, talents in that context? I don't know if you want to talk about that at this point.
No, no worries. I'll take it on. So I would say yes, it's luck, but this is how I look on luck. You make your own luck, and those guys they do have skills, they do have certain expertise coming from the back room, meaning the managing team, the coaching staff, and they have utilized all the resources they have and the opportunity that they have been presented with too, because there are times when their fate were totally in their own hands, but they did what they had to do, I would say, most of the time, and that's why they are where they are at right now. So even though they might be lucky, you might classify it as being lucky. Yes, I would say they are lucky, but they had to put in some work. It wasn't sole luck at all. They had to work their way up as well. So I think both work hand in hand, with their hard work, planning, and also with a bit of luck. And who doesn't need a little bit of luck in sport? I don't think you would play any sport that luck has not, intervened in some way or form. So that's my take on it. But an impressive run, I am sure, for this Garvey Maceo team.
Yeah, definitely. Fantastic, fantastic. So, what I want to do here, Ovi, is to kind of just go to the season in terms of, the very first round, just to take a look at, Garvey Maceo to the Olivier Shield. And guys, you can be a part of this conversation. So, I just shared the WhatsApp number in the chat there, as well as the Zoom link. So you can join us either way. And also, you can continue to share in the chat as well. All right, so this is just going to be a quick one. So, what I am going to do here, let's see if this works. All right, so let's see here if we can get this one. And yes, so on screen now, you should be seeing zone I. All right, so this is the zone where Garvey Maceo, all right, played in. So this is the very first round. All right, so as you can see here, the focus is going to be on Garvey Maceo, but let's just look at the zone. So in this zone, we had Glenmuir, Garvey, Kemsill, Old Arbor, Fogar Road, Vere, and Winston Jones, Porus. All right, so a very big group, and then you can understand why the top three from this group, moved to the next round. But again, we're going to focus predominantly here on Team Garvey Maceo. All right, so in this context, when we look at this very first zone, Garvey, they came out in second place. So they played a total of 10 games, all right, and they had 8 wins, all right, 2 losses, goals for here 36, and GA 9, goal difference 20, so goal against, goal difference 27, and overall points 24. When we look at the top of the group, we had Glenmuir, and it's a similar case in terms of the matches played, in the wins as well as the losses. But when we look at goals for, 53, goals against 5, goal difference 48. So while they ended on the same number of points, Glenmuir had a better goal difference in that context. So before I go any further, Ovi, I'm going to just come over to you to find out, what is your take on this one? So this is the very first, zone here. So what is your take on this one?
Well, this zone turned out to be a very strong zone in the first round because, when we get deeper into this discussion, you will realize that the top three teams there, Kemsill, Glenmuir, and Garvey Maceo, they did really well, going further on in the competition. But, we'll, Garvey Maceo being in that second place there, it's something that is accepted, I would say, based on the level of football that was played. But just to highlight that, since we're focusing on Garvey Maceo was one of the teams that beat Glenmuir there in that first round. And, that's something that we need
Absolutely.
to highlight as well.
Yeah, for sure. I believe both suffered losses at, so just to let you know, this is showing the last 5 games, so not all the 10 games. All right, but perhaps I could just go, let's see if this works before we move on to the next round. And perhaps it's not even working at this point. But let's see here if we can get a little bit more here from Garvey Maceo. All right, so we're just seeing just about the last 5 games. All right, for Garvey Maceo in this one. All right, so that's the situation there. All right, so they were second in Zone I, and so they moved on to the next round. And let us just try to bring that information up for you guys. That's the second round. All right, so in the context of the second round, let me just get this up. Let's see where Garvey Maceo was in terms of the group. Let's just go. And Garvey Maceo, they were with, here we go, group 8. So Garvey Maceo, all right, they were in this group. So when they moved to the second round, all right, we have McGraw, Garvey, Christiana, and St. Mary High School. So now in this one, it's just 3 games, right? And Garvey, they managed to get out of this group 8 behind McGraw. And it is so funny because they played McGraw in the final, and McGraw and Garvey, they were both in group 8. All right, so some information there for you. And as you can see here, in the context of Garvey Maceo, they had 2 wins. All right, so a win against Christiana, all right, as well as a win against St. Mary High, and they drew with McGraw. All right, so they drew with McGraw, 2-2 there. And as you can see in the context of the points, right? McGraw, they had 7 points. Garvey Maceo had 7, but it was the goal difference that, put McGraw in the number 1 spot there. So again, Garvey Maceo coming out in the number 2 spot. And at this point, when you're in the number 1 spot, you get, I believe, at least 2 home games, moving forward into the next round. So Garvey, they know, depending on the group, they're just going to get, 1 home game. So over to you, Ovi, to just hear what you have to share in this context.
Again in this round, the Garvey Maceo team holding on to the second, place in that group. In the first zone I, they were in the second place behind Glenmuir. Now they're behind McGrath. But something interesting popped out at me as well. The match between McGrath and the Garvey Maceo ended in a draw in this second round as well. So
Yes,
it showed that these two teams probably, based on statistics, we could
equally
say that
matched.
they're equally matched. And,
Agree.
that's probably why that match, ended as a 1-all draw after full time. That's the final, and Garvey Maceo coming away with it on penalties. So, these two teams, they have had always found a way to cancel out each other in terms of their attacking play and also defensive play. So that's interesting to see. But again, Garvey Maceo not topping a zone or a group in the first 2 rounds, and it's interesting to see how they progress going forward.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. Zaim, once you follow that link, it takes you to the meeting and then I'll be able to just let you in. So just follow the link. All right, just click on the link. All right, so that's the situation with Garvey Maceo there in the second round. So let's just move now to the round of 16 and let's see where Garvey Maceo, all right, where they fall here in the round of 16. And they were in zone 1. All right, so in the context here of zone 1, and this is again something that I don't know, but it is what it is. We had Stets, Garvey Maceo, Kemsil, and Alphonsus Davis High. So 3 Clarendon school in one zone. But again, we're focusing on Garvey Maceo here. All right. So here, some persons would say Garvey Maceo, they were kind of living on the edge here. So they had a draw with Stitch. They had a draw with Kemsil and they won Alphonsus Davis. All right. And if you guys have been following us, we would have gone in terms of doing the table predictions and possibilities. So would have done that. So we're just going to focus on the Cubans here. And so Garvey Maceo, they won just one game, all right, in the round of 16. But they managed again to maintain this number two spot. Again, not top in the zone to get at least, two home games, but they're doing enough to ensure that they're making it to the next round. So I see them just taking it, that they were just taking it round at a time. All right, so Ovi, over to you.
Yes, and again, they did what they had to do. They really did well against Alphonsus, which was the weakest team in the group, winning that one, and they didn't lose to anybody, and that took them through as well. So that was really good for them. And they had rivalry with Kemsil in the zone I as well. So they had not good knowledge of what Kemsil had to bring to the table. So probably that was in their favor. But as I said, they did what they needed to do, and they didn't lose to Stex. Neither did they lose to Kemsil, but they won that game against Alphonsus, and that's what took them right to the next round. And I guess if 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 Kemsil was able to win sets any at all, then Kemsil would have gone through. So the groups were pretty nicely poised. When it came into the 60 round of 16, lots of projections could be made. Lots of teams depending on results could have gone through or head home. So they did what they needed to do again, and that was good for them. Passing back over to you.
Yeah, fantastic. So agree there. All right, in that context. So the luck of the Cubans, as you would say, continue here. So let's just see here. Zahim. All right, so we'll see when Zahim comes in for this one. All right, so just waiting for Zahim there to come on in. Hello, Zahim. Welcome. Hello, Zahim. Welcome. Could you unmute and talk to us? All right, so just waiting to see if Zaim is going to talk to us here. All right, so let's just move to the next round here. All right, so let's see. All right, so in the context of the next round, so we're going to move to the quarterfinal round. All right, and let's just see what happens here in the context of Garvey Maceo. All right, so Garvey Maceo, they ended up in Group B. All right, so Ocherius, Garvey, Monroe, Central. All right, so that's the context there. Zahim, are you going to talk to us? Let me just see if Zahim is going to unmute and talk to us. Hello, Zahim. All right. So in this context, right, where we have now we're at the quarterfinals. So we have Ocherius, and this group was I guess a group where, one, you could expect just about anything here. All right, so three games again. Let's focus on Garvey Maceo. So in this group, we had Ocherius, Garvey, Monroe, Central. So Garvey Maceo, they had a draw with Central 2-2. All right, they won Monroe College and they lost to Ocherius. All right, so that's the situation. Ocherius, they had two draws and a win on 5 points, and we can see here Monroe too, they were on 4 points as well as Garvey Maceo. So kinda Garvey was pretty much living on the edge here, all right, in this context. And so what we notice here is that Garvey prevailed on a +1 goal difference. All right, so that's the context here for Garvey Maceo, but still doing enough, or at least just waiting on the results of some game that so happened to go in their favor, the luck of the Cubans, and securing another second place spot to move on to the next round. Zahim, you're here now. Can you talk to us? You have to unmute, so just unmute your microphone and talk to us. All right, we're not hearing from you, Zahim, on the Zoom, so perhaps you can try us on the WhatsApp number if that works for you. But we want you on the Zoom to contribute, all right? All right, so Avi, I'm going to come over to you. So this is the quarterfinal round. Garvey Maceo, another second place finish here. Talk to us.
Yeah, and interestingly, again, they're in another second place and a critical spot too. But this group was really, really a tough group because if you notice, the four teams played, when the first round, all the teams played to a draw. So like everybody was on 1 point, and that had, this group wide open. And, the teams Central struggled to get a win, so they had draws in their two first games, losing their last game. And if they had won that last game, then they would go up to 5 points and they would have progress. So this group was full of possibilities, and the four teams were in contention even when they headed into that final round of matches. So this group was a really tough group. But as you said, Garvey Maceo found a way to prevail and sticking and holding down that number 2 spot, which was critical for them to move on to the next round. So well done to them once more. And just to add a bit more to this, the results also went in their favor as well. So that I think that Monroe game, they just needed to do a little bit better in terms of goals scored, and they could have edged them out Mugabe Maseo. But kudos to the Gabe Maseo team. They did really really well to progress to the semifinals from here. So coming back over to you to see, what
Okay, sorry, I was
yeah,
muted. So I
no,
was just saying, Ovi, the last game here, when you're saying Garvey did really well, I wouldn't say that because they lost to Ocherius. So they were living on the edge here. Monroe, they won Central, but they perhaps needed to get a 4-1 or at least not allow Central to score a goal. But if we look at it, it's look at Monroe. So they both have a similar thing in terms of a draw, win, and a loss. But the last game was very critical. But Garvey didn't show up for that last game against Ocherios. And so they were pretty much depending on the outcome. So this is pretty much them, like it was no longer in their hands at this stage for Garvey Maceo, because I don't know if you agree with me. They did not win the final game that would have cemented their position in this group. They were pretty
I
much living on the edge here. So
for
Monroe,
sure, for sure, I agree with you. I agree with you, but they did. I guess in essence, they did enough. They did enough because if they had their hopes down and allowed Otorius to go all rampant over them, it could have been curtains just the same because it's pretty lucky for them to. If
no, but it's
Otorius can,
really lucky because Ocherius gave them 2 goals to nil. Like they didn't
yes,
score. So I am saying they were there waiting for the outcome really between Monroe and Central. So you can imagine how a Monroe feel
yeah,
with this result,
and
because Garvey, like this was really the place where perhaps they got the wake up call to say, hey, because this at this stage they were pretty much living on the edge, because you got the opportunity now. This is the final game, and as you shared earlier with this group, it was wide open from the very first round of games in this group. And so at this point now, Garvey Maceo, they suffered a loss in their final game, and somehow, as I said, it's the luck of the Cubans. I think this is where the luck comes in, where the luck started for Garvey Maceo right here. I don't know
for
what you have
sure,
to
for
say
sure.
about that, Ovi.
Yes, for sure. To lose that game, to lose that game and get through, I'm sure they were really. But the good thing about them and the advantage that they had was that they lost to the team that had the
Top
best
the group.
record. Yeah, so that's the thing, the team that had the best record, and that's what worked for them. So, before that last round, it was Central and Ocherius who were on top there of the group in the number one
Yes,
and number two spot because they had two
draws.
draws.
Yeah, for sure.
So yes, it's as I said, they did really well to not drop their guards down too, and if they threw in the towel and let Ocherius beat them badly, one more goal would make it really interesting. Two goals would knock them out. So if Ocherius scored four against them, they would be out, totally out. So
Yeah, for
it
sure.
it it's as I said, it was theirs to
And
go
you
through this
mentioned
year,
something. Let's say there was one more goal. They will go to -1
which would
goal
be the same
difference
as
here.
Monroe.
Monroe, and I guess they will go to goals for, and they still would have a better goal for 5. So it was just their time.
Yeah, the luck was with them, and we have seen other teams, who had their fair shares. I would say Central had it one of the years when, they didn't do as well as they could have in some of the rounds. They still made it through. One of the years
Yeah,
they won just one game and they made it through. And I think it's Garvey Maceo's year this year, and they took it all the way. So.
yeah, for
Yes,
sure.
this group B was really, really interesting and had a lot of fans and the players on the edge of their seats and a bit nervy in terms of this one. So yep, interesting group and Ocherius and Garvey Maceo getting important, Ocherius getting an important win in their last game and the same thing in terms of, with Monroe, they didn't do enough against Central to claim a spot there. So it shows that in this game, and when you get onto this stage, you have to make sure that you take care of your goal difference as well, because that's what hurt Monroe so badly, the goal difference, and that kept them out of, the semifinals.
Well, I'm gonna focus on Garvey. Garvey things, so it's Garvey things. All right, Zahim, which game are you referring to? Let us know in the chat. All right, so let's now move to the semi-finals. All right, and let's see where Team Garvey Maceo, all right, landed here. So the semifinals, as you can see here, all right, Glenmuir, Garvey Maceo, Ocherius McGrath. And then you see what happens next. So semifinals and then final. All right, so Glenmuir Garvey, they played to a nil-all draw. And then Garvey Maceo, they won on penalty kicks. All right, so that, as based on the results, that Garvey Maceo, they went straight to the final there, and there they met, of course, McGrath. But perhaps we can backtrack a little bit, Ovi, and kind of talk about the Garvey Maceo Glenmuir game. And so I'm just going to share briefly, and then you can share briefly too. So, just from what we saw in the context of the Glenmuir Garvey Maceo game, obviously Garvey Maceo, they did their work. All right, so Glenmuir, they were continuing in the Champions Cup, so they were playing. Garvey, they had time to rest, and they took the time to do their homework. And that is another video that we need to do in terms of Glenmuir High School to Ovi. Remind me about that. But this Garvey time now. So Garvey, they did their work. They did their work. And what I noticed from that game is that Garvey Maceo, they weren't trying to score. They weren't playing to score in that game. They were just defending, trying to cut out Glenmuir. When Headley takes his corners, and we know Headley he has a very good kick in terms of, especially, I believe it's on the right side of you. You can correct me when he does that, it's going to go like pretty
Left
much
side, left side.
left side. Thank you. It's pretty much going to land in the net there. And Garvey, they were very strategic in terms of how they positioned themselves and in terms of how they defended. So kudos to them. It was clear to me from my perspective that Garvey Maceo, they were playing for a draw in terms of hoping that there isn't any, especially no goals in terms of scoring. They wanted this game to go to penalty kicks. And that to me is how they played. They felt that they had a better keeper, and it showed in the end in terms of the keeper. And the keeper is very confident. I believe Tomlinson, very, very confident. And, you'll tell them, just score, me I go save one. So in that context, Garvey got the better of Glenmuir. They were able to plan in terms of the time that they had, and that plan worked. Over to you, Ovi. Let us hear what you have to say in the context of Glenmuir Garvey.
Yes, so another interesting game there between Glenmuir and Garvey Maceo. So, in the first round, I think Garvey Maceo beat, I'm not remembering the scores right now. I know Glenmuir beat Garvey 2-1, and no, Garvey Maceo beat Glenmuir 2-1, and Glenmuir had a 2-0 victory over Garvey Maceo in that first round. So, to be
I'm not
honest with you,
okay. I'm not too sure about the scores, but if you have them, you can share. I don't have them.
yeah, so don't quote me on the scores, but I think based on memory, that's what the scores were. I think
And
one or two
they
one
they
and two.
played they played twice.
Yes, they played twice
Okay. Because
in the
that is a
first
big
round.
group, so not everybody play a double
So
game.
for sure, but what happened was the teams that accumulated a certain amount of points, they played the full 10 games. But the teams who were out of contention, they didn't play full games in terms of playing the full amount of games. So that's what I can remember from earlier out. But anyways, get back into this Glenmuir Garvey. So they have had their tussle in terms of who is the more dominant team in terms of wins. And the Glenmuir seem to have a little challenge when it comes on to Garvey Maceo. Garvey Maceo finds a way to get some good performances against Glenmuir, and that was very evident in this final, the semi-final. So what happened, I think, based on what I saw, was the fact that Garvey Maceo, they shut down the attacking play that Glenmuir has. So you alluded to it, in saying with Headley. Headley is one of the playmakers for the Glenmuir team in terms of set plays. So he does very well in crossing the corners. And he does so well with delivering the ball in the 6 yard box. He has created lots of opportunities in that, for that Glenmuir team. So Garvey Maceo shut out him out of that, that area there that he did so well, placing somebody, on that almost on that goal line, close, like about halfway from the goal to, it just put something in his mind in terms of what he's going to do in terms of his crosses over. And that seemed to have affected, Headley's delivery into the box. And also, when he goes over on the right side, what Glenmuir does, because he's so good with, the crosses into the box, they normally take a short corner on the right hand side, getting him to cross it into the box from the left boot. They also placed a player there to shut down that. That was very evident from Garvey Maceo. So the crosses that normally comes into the box to pose problems, the Garvey Maceo team, eradicated that. They shut that down, and they did awesomely well with Watson. Watson, the prolific striker there for Glenmuir, went off the ball for the last few games. And I think Garvey Maceo did their homework and, were able to shut him out of the game as well. So based on that, they were able to cut off the striking force of the Glenmuir team. And in essence, they were able to hold them to a nil-all draw. And, as you said, and I agree with, they weren't playing necessarily to win that match. They wanted to go to penalties, and they made sure that, in order for that to happen, they're going to shut down the Glenmuir attacking plays, and they did their homework and they did that adequately. The Glenmuir team usually makes some changes, and that would impact the game, and the changes didn't work either. So they did a really good job in shutting down that potent Glenmuir team, and they totally deserve to head on to the final. So that's pretty much my analysis of that semi-final there between Glenmuir and Garvey Maceo. So I'm passing back over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. Gian, welcome. Which game are you referring to, Gian? So we're just looking at Garvey's journey to the Olivier Shield, and the Olivier Shield is tomorrow. All right, so let us know. All right, so from the semifinals, all right, so Garvey, they're not talking about number one or two now. They got, I guess the spot that they needed to to go over to into the final. All right. So it was the final between Garvey Maceo and McGrath. That ended in a draw and it went to penalties. But Ovi, I'm going to come over to you for you to just give us a quick overview of this Garvey Maceo McGrath final that pretty much ended in a win for the Cubans. and pretty much, that is how they are managing to be playing the Manning Cup, not the Manning Cup, the Olivier Shield tomorrow with the Manning Cup team, Kingston College. So talk to us in the context of that, the Costa Cup final at the National Stadium. Over to you.
All right, so as we alluded to earlier, the Garvey Maceo team and the Magra team, they had a tussle in the second round that ended in a two-all draw, and they made it to the final of the Da Costa Cup. So what happened in this one was, Garvey Maceo, they were put under a bit of pressure. So let's just bring a little bit of context to this final. So Garvey Maceo nil all with Glen Mura after full time heading to the final on penalties 5-2. And I'm highlighting 5-2 in terms of the penalties. I'll come back to that. And the Magra team beating Otorios 6-1 in coming into this game. So the Magra team, they scored lots of goals against the Otorios team in that semifinal, and obviously they would be on a high heading into the final. So with that said, Magra was able to score in the first half. I don't remember the minute time they scored. I think they scored pretty probably about midway the first half, right? So they had the Garvey Maceo team out of their comfort zone because they tend to try to shut out the teams coming forward, try to shut down their attacking plays and then play them on the counter to try and get a goal, or if they can close down the game totally to head toward penalty. But they had to change their approach in this one, and they were up against a good Magra team, two teams that we could say, as I said, they're equally matched. But they hung on to this game. They tried their best, and what was happening as well was the game had its ebbs and flows where players were going down and running the clock. I would say, especially on the part of Magra in the second half of the game. But what happened in this game? In the first half, at the end of the first half, they played 5 minutes of extra time or added on time because of stoppages. And in the second half, it was 7 minutes of added on time. So the Magra team, in the second half, getting late into the second half, they had lots of players behind the ball trying to, close out the game, leading 1 goal to nil. But, the thing with this Garvey Master team, and something that I must highlight as well, they have great belief in themselves. They thought and they decided that they're going to play 90 minutes and they're going to play the added on time and they're going to try right to the end. And I tell you, it was way up into the last minute. And I would let me go a little bit. I think there was less than 10 seconds on the clock in terms of the 7 minutes of added on time. So 90 minutes, all well and done. The Magra team did really well to keep the Garvey Maceo team at bay. But some of the strategies, I didn't work when in the final aspect of it because of the 7 minutes of added on time. So it was in those last few seconds that, OB, the number 11 from, Garvey Maceo was able to find a little bit of room. And from about 19 yards out, he was able to beat the goalkeeper to his right, a brilliant effort seconds before the final whistle was blown. And, from that point onward, we could have, said, this one is headed back to Clarendon and with Garvey Maceo because they hung in that game right to the last second and they were able to find the equalizer in the 7th minute of added on time and it was off to the penalties. So that's what was interesting. And I come back to the penalties. And if you look on the penalties, you mentioned Tomlinson, the goalkeeper, very confident. You know, he said, I think in the post match that he told his kickers to go out there score goals. He'll find a save from one, and he is a very confident young man and was able to save one. But Garvey Maceo getting the better of McGrath 5-4 on penalties. And I said I was going to come back to the penalties, and this is where I want to end.
Well,
And
I think we
maybe this,
have 5-3. I don't know, but perhaps it's 5-4. I don't know.
yes, so that's what I'm seeing here too on screen. So they won on penalties for sure, but this is what I would say about this one. If you notice, Garvey Maceo, they scored all five penalties in the semifinals, all five penalties in the final. They are a good team at kicking penalties, and that
Agree.
is something that they have done really well, something that they had practiced, and they
But I
probably
don't
decided that
know. I don't think this is right. In the semifinals, it's not 5. I don't think this data is right. I think Glenmuir they saved one. If we check our records, and perhaps I
yes,
need
for
to stop
sure. I
sharing this
almost can
one.
remember Morris saving one for sure, but
Yeah, let me just
in
stop
in
sharing this.
yes, yeah, we'll have to check back that. But in essence, though, I have to give it to them in terms of their execution as it relates to the penalty kicks, because they have done really well at scoring when it matters. And we have to give them their flowers, as they would say. They have done really well this season. They have scored when it matters. They have stepped up when it matters, and they have been rewarded for their hard work. Hard work from the players, and I must say hard work from the coaching staff and support staff as well. Their journey to the Olivier Shield has been a combination, a fusing of great minds, talents, and going out there and executing awesome plans that they have created. So that's pretty much what I would have to say about the final here between Garvey Maceo and McGrath. Them coming away winners from penalties, going back into their comfort zone, and they were able to execute well once more and take home the title.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Information very detailed, of course. And so, by that, in the context of what happened, now we know Garvey Maceo, they're going to the Olivier Shield. They're there and they will play tomorrow. All right, Saturday, December 14 at 3 p.m. down there, all right, in St. Elizabeth at STETS, so at St. Elizabeth Technical High School. We'll be live for that, so ensure that you're sticking and staying with us. All right, and remember to like, share, and subscribe before you leave. All right, thank you so much for tuning in. For this one, the luck of the Cubans, Garvey Maceo's journey to the Olivier Shield. Blessings and love, everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow or in the next live. All right, we'll just play some music to sign out of this one. Bye for now.